What exactly is AI?
Well, AI is really something that can be applied to anything in life.
And in fact, I think to some degree the technology in this area evolved as an outgrowth of what we did in the counterterrorism area.
Software engineers sitting at their desk programming moral judgments, and we're living in the matrix.
Yeah, this is a crucial point.
It was designed to connect dots, is that right?
That's right.
It's like it's wizardry.
You know, that's the beauty of having a federal system is we have
Big system for big corporation.
And it's just creating this real paranoia for people because they don't know why they're seeing what they're seeing.
The other thing that they realize is that this is not just cognition, not just thinking. It's perception, being able to see.
Ways in which we can teach computers to replicate what humans can do.
So it's kind of like teaching a computer program to act like a human brain.
It's a lot like that.
So we're even talking about things like an AI doctor might make a diagnosis.
Or to do intelligent things in the world that could be useful to us.
Maybe some of us don't have to work. We can do what we love and think about fun things. AI can be trained to do singular jobs better than people.
training people how to behave online.
And currently, we've been studying how to increase the number of reinforcers.
Machine learning AI can help us achieve some of these goals,
including computer vision, mapping, understanding activities.
The ability to allow information sharing among government agencies of data that they already legitimately have in their possession.
Is to cast a super wide net, collect as much data as the government can.
Because in the age of AI, data is the new oil.
Because so much data is generated by third parties or by devices or by things that we do unthinkingly, that you're not really going to be able to keep these details hidden.
As far as your own privacy is concerned, it's already out there. So I don't see very much that you can do about it.
Two things. Number one, this is a perfect example of how AI and robotics will have impact on every single aspect of life.
With a large amount of data, the AI algorithm that you train will just perform much better.
So what is it learning from? What have we thrown in there? And this is what we call a data set.
Well, and then we're seeing more of this with the so-called Internet of Things. More and more so-called smart devices.
Understanding people's behavior, people's reaction, people's acceptance of technology, etc.
And what that does is increase the surface areas, both for someone to attack your network, but also for someone to collect information about your comings and goings.
Once there are these comprehensive profiles of our behaviors and our habits and our likes and dislikes, we can be judged before we even walk through the door.
And it's not necessarily staying in silos. It actually can be aggregated and collected across all of the people who are talking about you, particularly if the data is held in the so-called cloud.
Which basically aggregates all of the components of AI that we talked about, the reasoning, the perception, the learning, and all of those.
To reflect the kind of, the history that we have that led us to this point. You want it to help us.
But developing things that can be used by everybody.
As soon as you put robots close to people, then you can start looking at what our human needs.
And it's about applying AI to a lot of problems and opportunities in banking.
And it's all happening with a profile of us that we don't know about, that's been compiled by a company we've never heard of before.
And the idea is by monitoring where you go, what you look online, what you buy, and even what your friends do and who they are.
In fact, people do not realize the level of AI that is now going into the next generation to change everyday life.
You're going to get a determination about whether you are a socially positive person or whether there are elements of your behavior that are considered negative.
We can't change what people already believe.
And we believe there's a finite number of pairings for an individual before any behavior becomes habitual.
But those paths are going to be closed in the next 5 to 10 years as machines pretty much do most of the work.
It means devices that can help us, that can do things that we could not do before, and can do so in harmony with humans.
So the AI diagnosis will surely be more accurate than the human diagnosis.
The AI was better at diagnosing than doctors.
It's true. I think on the surface, a lot of this stuff, especially artificial intelligence, it looks like it's actual magic.
So, there is a power to being able to collect this data.
In a way where insurance companies could use the information to discriminate.
And there have been some stories about people who unwittingly triggered the device turning on.
Things that are churning on them, on their fronts and their backs to take in information.
And all of a sudden what they said was being recorded and transmitted elsewhere.
Technology, robotics, AI, these are all tools.
Of using monitoring as a way to shape behavior.
It means constantly observing the people who see endless despair and suffering.
But they kind of know that there's this data collection going on.
And based on all that's on your phone, it will make a decision.
Algorithms being used to decide whether or not someone should get bail.
But the way in which those algorithms, the way in which that software functions is that we give it lots and lots of examples offline in the cloud to teach those algorithms what they need to know.
Be able to adapt and learn over time.
If the algorithm can pick up on really, really tiny clues hiding amongst your cells as to what your future holds in store for you.
Until and unless it has a legitimate reason to say that data over there, we might need that.
Then I think in that situation, actually, you should give up some control and trust the algorithm.
Something that's going to be recorded and ultimately wind up in someone else's hands.
We need to be able to trust that the government is operating constitutionally, or we lose faith.
There is storytelling where you're usurping the role of God to try to make a lifelike creature.
Emotionally attached to a machine or a robot, even if you know a machine isn't alive.
It's very much present still and will be present still in all steps of this process.
And that exists for testing the novelty of an algorithm to so you can protect the intellectual property, which is, I think, exactly the right thing to do. You need to have that process.
Exactly, and it'll be there forever.
Because AI is an enabling technology, similar to perhaps electricity, so it will enable all kinds of applications, hopefully mostly good ones.
But I also think that, with the advent of artificial intelligence, the amount of power that algorithms are being given and the number of situations in which they're being deployed, really, to make decisions about our lives is only increasing.
The progress in AI has accelerated exponentially.
Because there's infinite storage, and it'll be something that can be shared among wide groups of people.
And machine learning programs are different from the regular sorts of rules-based programs that we've had for years and years.
Big data surveillance was enabled by the USA Patriot Act.
Power distributed at various levels.
That, as soon as your information, your data, and mark has been against your name, once it's put into an algorithm, into a computer, then suddenly it takes on this air of authority that makes it almost impossible to argue against.
Silicon Valley and the new human.
Why we become attached to some robots and not to other ones.
The most important one is paying for everything.
We should also be thinking about how can we design them for,
where they rev up people on the right and they rev up people on the left, and they encourage them to go and clash with each other.
Through the philosophy of unintended consequences.
And partly through our common law system, there's a push to doing everything online. You're preserving data and you're creating it in a form that allows it to be shared. You're also generating locational data. Your credit card usage is generating data. When you go to the supermarket and you use a loyalty card to get a discount on your food, that's generating data. If you're wearing a fitness device, that's generating data. And many of these are wirelessly connected but actually do not build security in place. And what's remarkable to me is people are actually putting a similar device in their own houses voluntarily. What they're not thinking about is other people on the platform who are talking about you or who may be sharing photographs of you. That data about you is also being collected. An effort to keep privacy by keeping your data hidden or secret is almost, at this point, a vain effort. the courts will increasingly start to get involved and target and manipulate. It is going to cost money, and that means that the notion of privacy is under a different kind of challenge. For example, originally the Act allowed you to subpoena what they call metadata, which is really kind of basic stuff like what number is calling what number and how long the call lasts. And it was eventually modified so that the data is held by the companies.
Another example would be face recognition.
If they're getting on their device and they're looking at certain kinds of issues.
So one small mistake can make a huge difference. And when you recognize that they're part of a larger pipeline, then you think about checks and balances. You think about
where might people be interacting with AI right now and not realize it?
AI is not done in a single program or a single department, but in fact it cuts across.
Humans in the loop. You think about a larger system of decision making, of which algorithms should be one part.
With some of the home devices that allows you to ask questions and get answers, all of that is built on substantial AI.
Researchers in California have used a combination genetic sequencing and artificial intelligence to predict someone's risk.
And how that data is analyzed and then used to predict our behavior.
Now, ironically, that technique was pioneered by political consultants in the US.
Most of the things that we call AI today are powered by a type of algorithm, a type of computer program called machine learning.
Behind closed doors, protecting intellectual property, but really kind of assessing the benefits that these algorithms offer to society.
It got confused and some of the longer sentences that it tried to generate and not really make much sense. But some of its shorter lines, they were intriguing. They worked as first lines. My very favorite one it came up with is, I am forced to write to my neighbors about the beast. And I love that one because it drops you right in the middle of the story.
From the very highest levels of science, including this warning that came from the late great astrophysicist Stephen Hawking. Listen.
I think the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. Once humans develop artificial intelligence, it will take off on its own and redesign itself at an ever-increasing rate.